prepared for our students on the Culinary Arts program. Can we have a big round of applause? So this morning's event is coordinated by the Chester County School Board Legislative Council. They meet once a month to track all the legislation that's going on. Right now they're tracking probably about 900 bills in the Senate and in the House of Representatives. So it is an arduous task. They come every month with great questions, and here to welcome you is the chairman of the council, Mr. Bill Woods. Bill is our current chair. He's a lifelong educator and a staunch supporter of public schools. He attended Tredyffrin Easttown from kindergarten through graduation from Conestoga High School. He is a third-generation school board member, starting with his mother and his grandmother, and they have dedicated a combined 32 years of service to public education. Well done. Bill served on the Board of Trustees of the Avon Grove Charter School and has served on the board of the Avon Grove School District since 2016. Recently, he was a member of the PSBA Task Force and on Charter School Reform, and currently sits on the advisory board of the Keystone Center for Charter Change. Welcome, Bill.
Thank you very much, Mary, and thank you, everybody. Welcome. Boy, it's great to see so many people here. So before I go any further, I'd just like to invite everybody to take a moment, look around the room at all of these smiling faces, and let's just appreciate being together face to face for the first time in 3 years. So as I look around the room and have been circulating around and talking to people, I am inspired and feeling very hopeful to see so many people who have come out dedicated in service to the common goal of working to support our students. I believe that everyone in this room understands how important it is to provide our students with the academic, social, emotional, and mental health supports needed to develop the skills and habits of productive, successful, and engaged citizens. They need access to resources that let them pursue their passion in the arts, humanities, and STEM fields. They need to go to school buildings that are safe and secure. Special education students are requiring an ever-increasing share of our budgets. And we must ensure that there are enough qualified teachers in each and every classroom by making sure that they have the incentives so that dedicated and talented people choose careers in public education. And of course, before students ever even walk into those classrooms, we need bus drivers to get them there. I could go on. The list is long. The challenges are many. But the success of our students who represent our collective future depends upon the people in this room meeting those challenges. Working collaboratively on these challenges, I'm sure, will not always be easy. People in this room understand better than most just how rancorous and divisive our politics have become. School boards and school districts, as we all know, have been the focus of a lot of public anger over pandemic policies, and now have been drawn to the center of the emotional maelstrom of national culture wars. But I believe we can move beyond these. Now more than ever, it is important that we find opportunities such as this one today to meet, to forge personal relationships with each other. Relationships between school district leaders and our elected representatives at the county, state, and federal levels. Certainly, we will not always agree on what the best solutions are, but we can commit to continued open communication, to working together in a spirit of mutual respect and sharing of different perspectives. District leaders should feel free to contact their representatives at any time with comments or concerns. And legislators, please, I ask you, if you are considering education-related legislation, reach out to your district leaders. Find out from them how that legislation might directly affect their students before deciding how to proceed. I encourage you also to reach out to our school board members and members of the School Board Legislative Council. One of the purposes of the council is to help educate our communities and advocate within our communities for the legislation that will affect our students. So legislators and school board members, we can work in partnership to advance the important legislation to help our students. It is one of the main reasons, as I said, why that council exists and why we're hosting this breakfast with all of you today. So once again, thank you all for taking time out of your very busy schedules to attend this today. And I hope we will all take full advantage of this opportunity to forge new relationships, strengthen old ones, and explore ways that we can work together to help our students thrive and succeed. And with that, I'll turn it back over to Mary Curley. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Very well said. Bill is one member of our Legislative Council. Would the members of the Legislative Council who are here today please stand and be recognized? They took on one more assignment and they have to drive here to get that. So thank you all very, very much. It is now my pleasure to introduce Dr. George Fiore. As the Executive Director of the CCIU, Dr. Fiore collaborates with the 12 superintendents of Chester County to address the diverse needs of the nearly 90,000 students we serve. Prior to his appointment as CCIU's Executive Director, Dr. Fiore served as Superintendent of the Kutztown Area School District and was the high school principal at Wilson School District in West Lawn. He also has the distinct honor of being the founding headmaster of the Downingtown Area School District STEM Academy. Throughout his career, he has increased student achievement on state and national assessments, increased equity of access for students in advanced placement courses while increasing student achievement, earned national recognition for student achievement in the Washington Post Most Challenging High Schools and Newsweek's Beating the Odds top high schools for low-income students. He earned his Pennsylvania Department of Education Title I Distinguished Schools designation for student growth, as well as National Blue Ribbon High School designation. While his career experiences have been varied, the commonality between them and all is his role as a team builder. As a proud member of Team CCIU, please welcome Dr. George Fiore.
I didn't know who she was just talking about, but that was good. Thank you, Bill. Thank you, Mary. And thank you very much to all of you for joining us today. And as Bill said, it is so nice to see everyone in person. We haven't been able to do this for the last 3 years, and I really appreciate you taking time to visit with us. We have nearly 80 attendees, including legislators, school directors, superintendents, and school and IU administrators in attendance today. And I know it's a very hectic time normally, and the pandemic has made it even more so. But I truly believe that only by working together to address the challenges that we face in public ed will we be able to provide a world-class education for the nearly 90,000 students we have in our county. The turnout this morning shows our commitment of working together for the betterment of our students. I would like to thank our elected officials for coming today. So if you don't mind raising your hand so everyone could see who's in attendance. We have the Honorable John Lawrence, State Representative. Thank you, John. The Honorable Danielle Friel-Otten, State Representative. Thank you, Danielle. The Honorable Christina Sappi, State Representative. Thank you, Chris. The Honorable Christine Howard, State Representative. Thank you. The Honorable Tim Kearney, State Senator. Thank you, Tim. The Honorable Katie Muth. Thank you, Katie. And we have Michelle Kickline will be here shortly. She's still in traffic, as you know, on a Friday, quite difficult. Also, thank you to the following legislative aides in attendance. From the Office of Representative Craig Williams, Rachel Micarelli. Thank you, Rachel. From the Office of Representative Otten, Beth Brindle. Thank you, Beth. From the Office of Representative Schusterman, Jennifer Brown. Thank you. From the Office of Senator Committa, Michael Hartman. Thank you, Michael. And from the Office of Representative Dan Williams, Hans Van Mol. So thank you. I would like to thank my colleagues. I'm sorry, I don't have my glasses on, so I can't see anybody. Thank you, from Representative Hennedy's office. Thank you very much, appreciate it. That's one thing they taught me when I was in my speech class in college. Don't wear your glasses so you don't have to worry about who's in front of you.
And also Garrett, the Executive Director of the Senate Policy.
And there's also Garrett Orman, where Garrett at. Garrett's from our Senate Policy. Thank you very much for joining us as well. I would like to thank my colleagues, the superintendents of Chester County, for their commitment to our students and leading during the most difficult time we've seen during the history of public education. So if the superintendents wouldn't mind standing to be recognized today. They hate this, by the way. We met nearly every day for 9 months during the pandemic, every day. And we've met since March 13th, at least twice a week. So it's been a long road, and hopefully we're seeing some light at the end of this tunnel, we hope. I would also like to thank Bill Wood, the chair of the Chester County Legislative Committee, and all of the members of the Legislative Committee for organizing today's event, and for all the work they do throughout the year to keep us informed on critical legislation that impacts our students. As Mary said earlier, over 900 bills on education we are tracking through this committee. Many of them are detrimental to what happens in all of your communities, whether it's financially or to your students' education. So that's why we are here to work together to make sure we're positively have an impact on our students. And last but not least, I would like to thank Dr. Frank McKnight, the principal of Brandywine Technical College High School, his staff for hosting us, and Chef Danielle Bates and the culinary arts students for preparing our breakfast this morning. I'd like to give them one more round of applause. Thank you. As a former high school principal, I know how disruptive events such as these can be to our school day. I think I speak for everyone here when I say that being able to be in our schools and see firsthand the instruction that is taking place is invaluable. Often we only see budgets and legislation and not the faces that the numbers and words represent. So thank you for the opportunity to see firsthand the students and teachers behind and in front of our decisions. The work we will engage in each day, as we said earlier, is 90,000 children. We can't say that enough. The decisions we make in this room impacts the futures of 90,000 and their families. Because as a father of 3, I want my 3 children to be out of my house one day. But in order to get them there to have a rich livelihood and a career so that I can go visit as a grandparent, it's because of the decisions we make in this room, how we educate children, and the futures we provide for them. As public servants, everyone in this room today shares the same goals and represent the same constituents. We may sometimes differ on how to achieve those goals, but we all share the same desire to ensure that our students are provided with the highest quality education and are all afforded the opportunity to become successful and happy adults. This is our job. This is our work. And I can think of no greater privilege than be able to work together to prepare the next generation of citizens. We face many challenges in this endeavor, ones that can only be solved by working together. Today we are going to specifically address 2 of those challenges: meeting the growing need for mental health resources for our students and the critical staffing shortages facing all of our schools. Following the presentations today, we ask that you discuss these issues at your tables and to report out to the group at large the key takeaways from your conversations. Since we have a lot of information to present, we ask that you save any questions that you may have regarding the presentations for your tabletop discussions, which will come later. This will also allow you to get information that is specific to your district. We hope that you find today to be informative, but more importantly, we hope that today is the starting point for renewed conversations on how we can all work together to meet the social, emotional, and educational needs of all of our families. So thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Fiore. Please join me now in welcoming Dr. Emily Linardi. Our superintendents, in addition to being the chief school administrators of very large districts, are also tireless advocates for our students. So today, Dr. Linardi will provide an overview on how we can work together to meet our students' mental health needs. Following Dr. Linardi's presentation, the Honorable Christine Sappi will provide the work that she, our county, state, and school officials are currently working on to address the social, emotional, and mental well-being of our students. Dr. Linardi has been superintendent of the Downingtown Area School District since July 2017. She began her educational career teaching health physical education in the Camp Hill Junior Senior High School. After teaching for a few years, she was named assistant principal and later became the director of curriculum and instruction in the same district. In 1996, she became the assistant superintendent in the West York Area School District, and 2 years later became the district superintendent, a role she held for 19 years. Dr. Linardi received her PhD from the Pennsylvania State University in Educational Administration. She received her master's in Human Performance Motor Control from Indiana University and was an adjunct professor at both York College of Pennsylvania and the Harrisburg campus of Penn State University. In 2014, Dr. Linardi was the recipient of the Pennsylvania Association of School Administrators Superintendent of the Year. This achievement is selected yearly by superintendents around the state. It is one of the highest honors that a superintendent can receive. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Linardi.
In the words of Dr. Fiore, I don't know who you were talking about, but that was quite nice. So good morning, everyone. I'm delighted to be with you. And as you can see from the screen, my area is to share the big issues surrounding mental health of our children. So that's one of our two big topics. And honestly, it's just taken the limelight of all things that we're working on and the things that we care so deeply about. And I think that's true for our legislators, it's true for our board members, and certainly it's true for we superintendents. So let me begin first with just a quick note of thanks to Representative Sappi, because I know she's going to speak next, but she has really been kind of the glue that's gotten us all together to talk about this as more of a village, and I think that's so important. One of the things that we always say is that mental health is so significant, but in schools, you know, the students are with us for 7 hours, then there's this other 17 hours. They're with us for 180 days, and then there's this 185 other days that they're not with us. So it really is bigger than what we can do in the school business. So I certainly thank the representative for all her due diligence in this area. So during my part, I'd like to do two things. She had asked the superintendents to get together and come up with some specific solutions around mental health. And so you see the solutions and 4 things there under solutions. I'd like to share just a snapshot of some mental health statistics and then just give you a summary of those 4 things. The superintendents did do an extensive presentation for all of our legislators, and thank you to our legislators because you were all so receptive and we were so appreciative of that. So let's just go to a quick snapshot and then I'll review quickly our 4 solutions. 2 slides on this, and they're both statistical slides. I hope you can read this, but this is an estimate of U.S. children with mental disorders. and just looked at those different bubbles. I'll mention a few. 1 in 5 children, 13 to 17-year-olds, experience mental or neurological disorder in any given year. That's huge. 2.5 million children suffer from anxiety and depression. This is the one that I think captures us in schools because we see it so readily. Another 2.2 million exhibit behavioral or conduct issues that are often inextricably linked to those other issues. One of the things that I want to mention about this is that these data were collected pre-pandemic. So we have seen an uptick in all of our schools, and I'll tell you that one of the things that I've done when we got back to in-person is I have this thing called How's It Going lunches with small groups of teachers. And so Downingtown has 16 schools, and so that's a lot of movement around, and I've done 2 rounds of them early in the year, and I just meet with a small group of like 10 teachers. Now, I lure them to the meeting with lunch, so they come. But anyway, and I eat a lot. But besides that, we have these meetings, and this year I asked them 2 questions. I do it each year, but this year was particular. I asked them, how are you doing, meaning you and your colleagues, and how are our kids doing? And I need to tell you that they were unified in their answers. When it came to our students, the learning loss piece they talked about, but honestly, our teachers, and I think this would be true of my colleagues, our teachers are pretty confident that they can get kids back to where they need to be. Might take a minute, might take more than this year, but we'll get them back. But what they didn't see coming was the behavioral changes, the mental health issues, et cetera. So when I look at this slide, I think the numbers are considerably higher just based on my own anecdotal data that I've collected in Downingtown. A second slide here that's more local to us in Chester County. This is the Pennsylvania Youth Survey, and it's 2021 data. And on the y-axis, you see going up, experience depression, seriously consider suicide, make a suicide plan, and attempt suicide. I mean, these are hard words to even say when we're talking about our teenagers. On the x-axis, of course, we have percentages. The gold is seniors. Green is 10th graders, orange is 8th graders, and blue is 6th graders. So just take a minute and look at those numbers. They are nothing short of alarming. All right, let me move on to the 4 ideas that we have as superintendents. And again, big ideas, can't happen in a minute, but I think comprehensive in nature. Address the critical shortage of mental health professionals, embed crisis counselors in schools, open in-county inpatient care centers, and create family partnerships for a continuum of care throughout our community. So let me just show you a slide or 2 on each one of these. Here's the first one, address the critical shortage. Now, one of the things I want to say about this is that it's kind of done in that we know what we need to do. So back in 2019, you see on the slide, there was already a Pennsylvania mental health care workforce shortage commission that looked at this, and thank you to Representative Christine Howard, who was co-sponsored in this. But you see the list of bulleted items there that talked about what we should do. And so our ask really now is that we ask the General Assembly to enact these recommendations. And one of the issues with the shortage, and of course we're going to talk about shortage of everything from bus drivers to teachers to paraprofessionals, of superintendents, for goodness sakes. But just talking about mental health professionals, it's expensive to live in our wonderful county. And so if we can do something together that would allow starting salaries to be of high enough that students can pay back loans, they can rent an apartment, they can buy groceries, they can live in and around Chester County. Specifically, some ideas that you see on the bulleted list there, perhaps tuition repayments, loan forgiveness, tax incentives, some way of providing affordable housing. They're the kind of things that I think would attract young people to come to our county as opposed to a county nearby. Second thing is crisis counselors inside, and you see here in red it says and outside of schools. So one of the things is everyone knows that Safe to Say was implemented a few years ago, and that has turned out to be amazing. It was implemented because of school shootings and violence in schools, et cetera. Well, an unintended consequence is that it is now a crisis hotline, and it has been invaluable because when it first started, I know as superintendents and even principals, we were a little cynical in that we were saying, well, you know, are kids just going to call, or are they going, and you know, it's not really going to be a real thing. Turned out, not so. Kids call when they're in crisis, or they call about a friend in crisis. So it's the real deal, and this has been very, very helpful. But when you look at the second bullet here, here's the problem. We don't have people, we don't essentially work 24/7 in all of our schools. And so a call might come in or a tip might come in at 3 in the morning. Well, who attends to that? So we end up having principals, assistant principals, different people trying to attend to that. People are scared to death not to attend to it because they could save a life. And I think we could tell some stories where we have saved a life. So I think some more has to be done in this area in terms of helping counselors not be necessarily affiliated with us, but help us in our schools, particularly with Safe to Say. And here's an idea. The juvenile probation system actually has this model in place. And so if you look at these list of ideas, to have someone that doesn't necessarily work for the school, and we use the juvenile probation model, it would be a professional who could coordinate communication between schools, families, provider services, issue referrals to services outside of school, coordinate the return to school, respond to Safe to Say tip line, and work with emergency personnel. So I can tell you that in Downingtown, our board has been amazing in terms of hiring more people in the mental health field. In the last couple of years, we have hired more counselors, what we call prevention specialists like social workers, more psychologists, more behavioral specialists, but it's bigger than that. It's bigger than, even those people, they're not working 24/7. So I think it has to be this person outside of the school system that interacts with the school system. So that's our ask in terms of counselors. When we look at the third one, this is a big ask, and it's one that is near and dear to me because I think it would help us tremendously. We went, as everybody in this room knows, from 5 to 3 hospitals in the county. Horsham is our only acute partial program supported by the county. And I put finances here as just as an influencer, because in many cases you need private insurance or there's an out-of-pocket cost. There's also transportation needed. They're non-starters for many people. So this isn't working, what we have right now. And so if we look at a better model, a full service model, we would say one of the 2 vacant hospitals in Chester County, although I'd also point out that we do have a couple of school buildings that are vacant at the time in the county. But look at crisis centers that would be a single point of contact with a full continuum of care. So our students wouldn't have to go to Delaware or another county, or they wouldn't have to wait to get admitted, those kinds of things. Just think about it. You're in the middle of the day, a student is in crisis, you're the counselor, you have somewhere to send our Chester County kiddos in Chester County. Right away, it would start with an evaluation. There would need to be a psychiatrist, a medical person on staff, so they could do all the paperwork, and if the student needed to be admitted, they could do that. So it would be an inpatient facility, allow inpatient care. Partial hospitalization. It should include intensive outpatient services. It would include a step-down program, a process where we would have a school liaison, so that rather than them being somewhere and then all of a sudden come to school the next day and we have no idea what happened, now we would have that interaction and we'd have a transition back to school, and that would be very successful. So this just warms my heart to think about the possibility that we could do this in Chester County, and we can. It's big. It's a big ask. We told the representative that. Like, we have a couple big asks here, but this is really, in my opinion, the missing link. The final piece of this is just not to underestimate kind of the village idea, that it really takes all of us. Because they're with us again 7 hours, 17 not with us, I think we need to be the bridge, and I think we have to have local family partnerships. So specifically, these programs could be delivered by community agencies, maybe through hospitals, health clinics, but the kinds of things that would happen, the programs that they would help would be perhaps housing assistance, like the ancillary things that affect mental health, housing assistance, treatment, crisis intervention, employment services, court diversion programs, medication management, substance abuse. Again, not those ancillary mental health ideas. So they are of particular importance to us, and I think that those connections are important. The last piece I'll say about this regarding schools is that we do have capacity in schools. We are busy during the day and we have thousands there, but we do have those same big buildings at night. And so I think, again, in terms of partnership, we could offer some services there that we haven't done in the past. So That's a quick overview of a much longer presentation that we did for our legislators. I appreciate everybody listening. I hope it creates good conversation at your tables when we go to do that. And in closing, I would just say to you that our schools have done a lot, and it isn't enough. We absolutely need this comprehensive programming where we work together to help our students in this huge crisis called mental health. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Dr. Linardi. As Dr. Linardi talked about, we have a great supporter and advocate in our legislators, and we are extremely grateful to the Honorable Christine Sappi for really bringing us all together so that we can discuss this and how we can work as a community to address the needs. As Dr. Linardi stated, we have students for about 7 hours a day for 180 days, right? So that leaves a lot of time when we don't have them. So we really need to work together. And Representative Sappi has really been an advocate for this. As a longtime resident of Chester County, where she has worked, she has been an active member of the community and raised a family. She managed a business in the fashion industry for many years and later was a stay-at-home parent. She really knows what we are facing. Chris became an active in open space, natural resource protection, and infrastructure issues in her community. Upon returning to the workforce, Representative Sappi used her knowledge and experience to serve the people of Chester County as Chief of Staff to former State Representative Barbara McIlvaine-Smith, Director of Legislative Initiatives to Senator Andy Dinniman, and most recently, Chief of Staff to State Representative and now State Senator Carolyn Comita. As a new member of the Pennsylvania House of Representatives, not so new anymore, for the 158th Legislative District, Representative Sappi is committed to protecting our quality of life and working to create opportunity for all. Please join me in welcoming Representative Sappi.
Good morning. It's great to see you all. I saw a couple of people hop up over here, and I definitely had to take the steps, so sorry for that long walk. I'm just going to give you a brief update on what we've done here, and thank you so much to the intermediate unit, to the students who made our breakfast, and our superintendents who are on the front lines every day, and our school board members that are here today too on these front lines. It has truly been an amazing couple of years, and I know I speak for my colleagues when I say we are so grateful for what you do and to partner with you. So, I think we really reached a tipping point. We've known that we had a youth mental health issue in Chester County, in Pennsylvania, and the United States now for some time. It's been growing, but the pandemic really sort of brought us to this tipping point. And if there's an upside to getting older and living in one place for a long time, it's knowing a lot of people and how to bring them together. And so I asked myself, what can I do? And this is a question that I know we're all asking. Our parents are asking, are calling our offices. I know my colleagues are getting these calls as well. I mean, I'm getting calls from parents of 8-year-olds who are suicidal and have these tendencies. This is a real crisis. So what can we do? Bringing people together, taking a quick inventory of what we have in place currently at the county level and at the school district level, which was a lot. We actually offered a lot of services and a lot of interventions, and it still wasn't enough. And when you have parents facing the fact that their child is going to Wisconsin for inpatient services and then returning to the community and trying to re-enter, that's not acceptable. And so we did this inventory, and then the superintendents put together, this amazing presentation for all of us in February, and we broke it down into those 4 buckets, and that's really the framework for what we're doing now. We have created these 4 work groups led by some folks, but I just want to give a quick overview of who's involved, because this is an all-hands-on-deck moment, and we have everybody involved, and I'm really, really grateful for that. We have all of our legislators. This is a bipartisan endeavor, and mental health doesn't discriminate on a political basis, so we've got everyone involved from the House and the Senate, and our county commissioners and our County Department of Human Services have done a wonderful job. We also have the Chester County Hospital. We have the Chester County Economic Development Council. We have a lot of our providers and family service organizations, nonprofits. We have Westchester University. We have, I know I'm going to be forgetting some of these amazing groups involved, but our office is sort of acting as the umbrella, and these stakeholders in the community are working within these 4 groups. And, I really appreciate that people signed up to do this, because they're the community leaders, and they're going to help us achieve these goals. But we have, the first group, the critical shortage of mental health professionals. We have the Economic Development Council leading on that issue. Embedding crisis counselors in schools. We have Representative Christine Howard leading that work group. Opening in-county patient care centers, which, Dr. Linardi had mentioned was, a big one. And I hope I didn't just mess up somebody's presentation. That's a big lift. And so we have a lot of folks on that, and that's being led by Representative Diane Herron. And then the fourth group is creating family partnerships for continuation of care in the community, being led by Dr. George Fiore. So we have a lot of folks underneath these 4 chairs. They've just started working. They've met, the chairs have met to sort of set their parameters and the framework for how they're going to move forward, and now the groups are starting to meet. And so we have a time frame in mind. We're hoping to have some recommendations and things in place by the end of this summer. That's a lofty goal, but we really hear the clock ticking, and we really need to address this. And I can't thank you all for your participation. Most of you are involved in this work, and we are here, obviously our office, my Chief of Staff, Tyler Arkiton, is here today to keep this ball rolling, and that's really, it's an us project. We are all working on this together, and again, it's not a partisan endeavor. This is something that we all have to be a part of to address. So I don't think there's anything more important than our children. They can't learn if they're not whole, and if our families aren't whole, our kids aren't whole. So thank you so much again, and I look forward to the conversations at the tables.
I'm going to have to try to switch the presentations now, so wish me luck. I do have help. I'm not Christina. So I'm going to introduce our next speakers while Christina switches the presentation. It's a much better plan, trust me. I'll just steal this. Do I need this? I don't even know if I need this. Y'all can hear me, right? All right. Okay. So really, to say that the last 2 years have been challenging is to say the least. And our mental health needs are one of those great issues. An even more critical issue is our staffing shortage. Because if we don't have the students there with the staff to help them, we get nowhere. And it's across the board. So Representative Sappi and Dr. Linardi, they spoke about the need for mental health workers. But as we know, it stretches across all facets of our educational community, our business community, our healthcare community. We're all really fighting for the same people right now in many, many areas. Here to tell us some ideas that we have and the challenges we are facing here in education is Dr. John Sandville and Dr. Rich Gusik. Dr. Sandville became superintendent of the Unionville Chadsford School District in 2011. He has held virtually every job in a school, starting with his summer work as a custodian. After graduating from George Washington University, his first jobs in school was a security guard and a soccer coach. His first teaching job came 2 years later as a U.S. history teacher, and after completing his graduate studies at Virginia Tech, he was hired as a middle school counselor. He earned his principal certificate and became an assistant principal, first in Spotsylvania County and then in Marple Newtown, Pennsylvania. 3 years later, John came to Unionville Chadsford as Director of Curriculum. That same year, after a successful defense of his dissertation, Dr. Sandville earned his doctorate degree. Dr. Sandville has served as superintendent since 2011. He jokes about his first day as superintendent. The Brandywine River flooded on the first scheduled day of school that year, and so John's first official act as superintendent was to close the schools. So he had practice for the pandemic. Since then, John and the district have gone on to accomplish much to further the mission and to empower students. Our other presenter, Dr. Rich Gusik, has served as a superintendent of TE School District since 2015. Dr. Gusik joined TE School District in 1990 as a social studies teacher at Conestoga High School. He taught social studies for more than 10 years, becoming assistant principal of Conestoga High School in 2003. As a teacher, Dr. Gusik was the recipient of numerous teaching awards, including the College Board Award for Outstanding Teacher of Advanced Placement. In 2007, he was transferred to Central Administration as administrator on assignment, and he never left central office after that. In his role, he led the district action team process, which involved the participation of hundreds of students, teachers, parents, community members, and administrators. He completed his Bachelor of Arts and Master of Science at the University of Pennsylvania. He earned his Master of Arts degree at Pennsylvania State University and his doctor education at the University of Delaware. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Sandville and Dr. Gusik.
You're going to stay there, John? All right.
Yeah, I like the idea of having a mic and a cord. You know, might do a little bit of Roger Daltrey stuff. We'll see here.
You were warned. We're going to trade off some sharing some information with you today, and I think again that idea of an employment shortage is not something that's unfamiliar to anyone as we shop in our communities or get things to eat. How many of this? It seems like thanks. It seems like every place has a help wanted sign, and even worse, sometimes we see places that are closed in the hours that we expect them to be open, and there's a handwritten sign that says closed due to staffing shortages. So we know it's not unique to education. At the same time, we're seeing resignation letters come across our desks. We're talking with our HR directors and hearing this, and it makes me wonder sometimes if anyone is willing to do any job anywhere anymore. Part of this problem is that predates the pandemic. There has been a shortage of teachers receiving certificates in our state, and it's dramatic drop, down 67% in the last decade. So our pool is much smaller when we're looking to hire applicants. And I think any of us would be able to say, I don't think it's particular to one district. We used to have a lot more applications to sift through in determining who we'd bring in for interviews, and that pool is much smaller than it had been. And it is listed by most superintendents as one of the biggest challenges, if not the biggest challenge we face, and certainly we'd like to address the circumstance and be proactive before it would become existential. It's not just teachers, right? We certainly have seen a decrease, 4.7% staff decrease from 2021 to 2022. And when we look at some of these numbers in job classes, Substitute teachers, 98% districts having shortages. Our aides and paraprofessionals, also very high and challenging. We've all discussed, and it's been reported about bus drivers, but it has extended to the professional staff. We're also seeing the same with full-time teachers and areas of particular certification. School nurses has been a particular challenge for us, as well as some of the more challenging areas of certification, world languages, special education, science. The pool has just become very small. There's some job classes that are not on here. It really is across the board. Prior to the pandemic, it was challenging to have workers in food services, to have workers in our custodial areas of service, and it's just really industry-wide. John's going to talk about a few ideas about what we can do about it.
Thank you, Rich. And Mary, thank you for that very kind opening. I appreciate an introduction. If I can just piggyback a little bit on Rich was just talking about, the situation that we are in right now, and I know that I'm preaching to the choir in large degree, the situation is not sustainable. We cannot keep this up. If you go into schools right now, we have teachers who are giving up their planning period, teaching all day long to cover for colleagues who are out sick. We don't have folks to cover transportation, buses. We don't have folks that are able to serve food in all job categories. People are jumping in to cover these openings. I can tell you in our district, in the interest of not being above what we ask others to do, I have 2 board members here right now who have been in the cafeteria serving lunches. I can tell you that we have administrators that have been driving buses. And that's all fine and good, but we can't keep this up. For the short term, you can make it work, but you can't make it work long term this way. And so what is it that we can do to address the situation? And I think that there are some solutions out there. Some of them cost money, but some of them don't. And I think there are things from a legislative perspective that we can do to ease the burden. So the first thing is teacher certification and reciprocity with other states. Pennsylvania, quite frankly, is notorious as one of the most difficult common states in the country to get teacher certification. I can just talk to my own experience coming from Virginia to Pennsylvania. I have a doctorate from the University of Virginia in school leadership, which made me eligible in Virginia to be an administrator, to be a superintendent, but it didn't do so in Pennsylvania. I had to take additional courses in Pennsylvania in order to get certified. And if I sound salty about it, I am. But the reality is that there are thousands, if not tens of thousands, of stories like that in terms of the difficulty people have coming from outside of Pennsylvania who are certified in other states, coming here, and we make it difficult. This is not the time to make getting new employees, getting new professionals. This is not the time to make it more difficult. The market has changed. And I get, by the way, I get the intent. The intent is for us to have the highest quality people in front of our students, and I fully support that intent. But I will tell you from my own experience, I was not any more qualified to be a superintendent after I took those 2 courses than before I took those 2 courses. And I think we can get highly qualified people that are already been certified in other states, and that doesn't cost us anything. And it opens the door further to allow us to recruit people to come here. And I think that is I think that is just, and you can see some specifics here. You'll get this PowerPoint. I think that's important for us to address. I can tell you, so alternative pathways to certification. I will tell you that we had a business teacher opening in Unionville, Chadsford that was, we had an unfortunate resignation over a health issue. It took us literally months to fill that position. Months. And this is Chester County. You know, we're the wealthiest county in Pennsylvania. We are a destination county for people, and we had an opening for months in a business position where, let me tell you, there are people that are really highly qualified, who are talented people in business that would be willing to come and teach, and we can help them along the way, but we don't allow that to happen. We don't allow that. And why not? Again, the world has changed around us, and we have to be willing to adapt and understand that we want the best people in front of our kids, and there's fantastic talent out there that are in the private sector that would be willing to come and teach if we didn't require them to jump through a lot of hoops. Not just the coursework, but let's not forget that you then need to be a student teacher for 3 months before you can get that certification. I think that we need to look at the way that we certify people, these alternative routes, to really broaden our candidate pool and look at ways to bring more people into the profession. I thank the legislators that are in the room for Act 91. It has helped. It has made a difference, and we all know. So right now, for Unionville Chadsford, we have a substitute rate of about 80%, and that's probably pretty common across all the school districts in the county. So that means 20% of the people who are out sick, they're open. Those positions are open. So we need to grow that candidate pool, and Act 91 has helped us. I would suggest, and again, this doesn't cost us anything, the Act 91 expires in June of '23. Let's make this permanent. It's not the only fix. It's not the only thing that'll make a difference. But if it can make it better, and we will have had it for almost 2 years, I would recommend that we make this a permanent change.
Thanks, John. A few other thoughts for consideration, and we've been at a theme of many of our past meetings has been mandate relief, but just a few examples of where that could help. Act 45 and Act 48, which are continuing education requirements for our teachers and administrators, actually does put some restrictions and can have an impact on the job pool. In several... Never happens to John. In some ways,
better lucky than good, Rich.
There are, for example, teachers who take leave. And I know that's an option for teachers when they take leave to suspend their certificates. And then the timeline for Act 48 and renewing their continuing education credits is suspended. But some don't intend to leave for a while, and they therefore don't stop that clock. And then when they decide they want to re-enter the teaching force, we've had individuals who've been teachers with us before who say, I have an unbelievably crushing load of Act 48 hours to make up to have my certificate be active again. So that's certainly a challenge. I believe that Act 48 and Act 45, in principle, at this point, are also redundancies. We have lots of ongoing training for our teachers. Some of it you require, and we welcome, whether it's child abuse prevention or suicide prevention or trauma-informed instruction. We're required to provide that ongoing training for our staff. And so relief from Act 48 would eliminate some of this redundancy and also, I believe, keep from unintentionally excluding individuals who want to re-enter the workforce. In the past few years, you may be aware, teacher certification spans have been more particularized. And K-6 elementary certificates are now K-4. And there's a whole spate of middle school certificates that are now required that hadn't been in the past. Very specifically in special education, it used to be a K-12 certification, and now it's a K-8 and 7-12 certification. And particularly with that 7-12 certification, it is super hard to find candidates who come in with the secondary special education cert. And it creates another effect that might in the long term complicate this problem. So we have people on staff with the old certification. And if we can't find a new candidate, we transfer them. You know, we have K-4 schools in TE. If I have a 5th grade opening, I could bring in a brand new teacher and give them a shot at that 5th grade class. Or I could take one of our more seasoned teachers with a K-6 certificate and move them into 5th grade if I can't find someone with the more particularized middle school certificate. So giving us some flexibility to make those decisions. None of us want to put someone in front of students who isn't qualified to do so. But those are just a few examples where it's certainly not going to be against the benefit of students to be able to give us the flexibility to make those decisions. Another example is school bus driver requirements. I'm told regularly by our transportation director that it's one of the most challenging certifications to receive, and with good reason. Certainly any safety-related requirements, we want our drivers to be well trained and have them be safe. But when I ask further questions, it turns out that not all the training is about safety. They have to get questions about popping the hood and what happens, in the engine of the bus. Now, I can tell you, when our buses break down, our drivers are not out inspecting the engines. We send another bus. There are also requirements about knowing how to transport hazardous materials. I think we could streamline the process to make it easier for drivers to receive those certifications.
Though I don't know, middle school students, maybe that's a hazardous material.
Yeah,
I'm not quite
I
sure.
thought that was an unkind way of looking at our students. But if these things can't happen, please at least do not add additional mandates to schools and teachers. I know lots of ideas get kicked around and they don't all materialize, but just for example, if it becomes a requirement that our teachers are going to have to post all their instructional materials online, that will throw gasoline on this fire. They are not in the business of doing that. In general, if I could echo some of the opening remarks of Mr. Wood, we can work together on this, and we can do this. It might sound idealistic. I know there are strong opinions and differences of opinion about what to do with schools. But when the discussion turns toxic towards schools, it does not help us with the teacher shortage problem. It does not help young people when they're considering a career to make the decision to enter education. And maybe there could be a task force talking to our teachers. I know that Em talked about how she talks with teachers. We all do as superintendents. And I'm hearing regularly, I guess the big category is they mourn the job they used to have because it isn't the same job anymore. And when you ask them about what's different that comes up the most, it's the external stuff. They're disturbed by what happens at public meetings. They're disturbed. They have vexatious right-to-know requests that they have to sift through their emails. They see threats made to school officials and even against school employees. I'm wondering if instead of, as this national conversation is heated, what if we took a different approach in Pennsylvania? And we said, we are going to recognize your value. And we made statements and took measures to protect teachers and educators. An Educator Protection Act, protecting them against frivolous lawsuits or providing extra protections against threat, would be a very strong statement that we care about them and that we all care about the future of education and particularly in our public schools. So these are just a few thoughts that we put together. John, do you have anything to add?
Sure. I'll just say that let's just talk about school leadership. And we know what school leadership means for the student experience, for student achievement. And when I say school leadership, I'm talking about school board members, I'm talking about superintendents, and we know that in the last 2 years, over 200 superintendents have stepped down. So that's 40%. That is considerable, and and as you look at professional educator shortages, we're going to have shortages at the top, I believe, because we're seeing people leave. The other thing is I look to the school board members here, who the last 2 years have been unbelievably difficult for you. You have been in those meetings. You have been horrible things said to you, about you, in person, on social media. And so who is going to run for office for school board in November of '23? And I worry about that. Who's going to want to do it after what has happened? And so the idea of civility, the idea of civil discourse, the idea of it's okay to disagree, but it's really not okay to be disagreeable, I think as a community is something that we need to work on, and and I think it'll benefit us all. And with that,
Yeah.
Rich, I'll turn it back to you.
Our public officials, as public officials, to some extent, we might expect some of the criticism. Our teachers don't. They didn't come into the profession for that. They didn't come into the profession to have things they say taken out of context or weaponized against themselves personally or the school. So the degree to which we can address that and make it a more invitational climate to enter the workforce, that would be of great help. Thank you for your time listening this morning.
Thank you, Dr. Gusik. Thank you, Dr. Sandville. And thank you, Dr. Linardi. We really put together our thoughts as a collective of 12 superintendents and the intermediate unit. So what we ask you to do at this point, at your table, for the next 10 minutes or so, talk about the issues that were presented here and those possible solutions, so that you can brainstorm what could we do together in the future to move these initiatives forward to resolution, or at least progress. So at about, let's say 10:18, I'll bring us back.